Today on A Couple of Pointers podcast, we're lucky enough to have Harry Sims. Welcome to the show.
Hey, Ricky. Thanks for having me.
Mate, when we booked the show, I was going to introduce you as from one place. Now what? Introduce you from personalprospecting.com?
There you go. Yeah, I'm unemployed, so people shouldn't listen to a word I've got to say on this. So yeah, that's all I'm doing right now.
I think the fact that you're unemployed, one of the most skilled SDR leaders I've come across is unemployed, is all the reason people should listen to this podcast.
I appreciate the kind words, Ricky. You got to make sure you've got subtitles for this as well, right? Because you've got an accent, I've got an accent.
Yeah, we'll stick some subtitles on. I know people struggle with mine. I think I read somewhere that statistically people find the British accents, they will have a bias, assuming you are more intelligent than you are.
Yeah, that's how I've got to where I am. That's how I've been employed most of the time.
I think with a South African accent, they think I'm just going to rob them.
Most people probably think you're Australian as well, right? I bet you get a bit of that.
I get a lot of, I love your Australian accent. I'm like, thanks.
I can tell.
So let's dive right in. One of the things I wanted to talk to you about was you've been a very strong advocate for many years on never outsourcing outbound. Now, before we get into if your mind's changed or not, just tell me why.
Yeah, I think it's one of those things where there's an emotional thing that you rationalize with logic, right? And I think the emotional thing is I'm scared you're going to take my job and do it cheaper and better. Then the logic, the outreach I get from outbound SDR, outsourced SDR teams is generally trash. And that's probably because I'm not a very high value prospect for them, I was thinking, or some of it just isn't very good. There's obviously good and bad in every industry. And the more I think about it, I shouldn't paint a whole industry or way of working as bad because of those sorts of experiences. I have actually warmed up to it a little bit.
I think there are some reasons that I could give you why companies shouldn't outsource.
Yeah.
And one of them is if you look at the actual outsource model, how do we make money, right? If I'm charging a company $1,000 and they're looking for X amount of output, if I've reached that output and it's only cost me $200, I'm now motivated to no longer invest in that client to maximize my profit. So in many ways, like the typical agency model problem, I'm competing with my clients, and Pointer avoids that. We have a very different model. But absolutely, I think that's the vast majority out there. You land up competing with your agency for the resources that they are using.
Yeah.
And so let's tuck in here a little bit. So why have you warmed up a little bit? So what do you think's...
Good question. I think... So I agree with you first on that point. You're also not invested in the optimization as much as you would be if you owned it end to end. We may get onto that later. But why have I warmed up to it? The last 6-ish years, I've been building outbound SDR teams from scratch. And it's very expensive. It takes a very long time. That first year is hellish. And there's a lot of experimentation that needs to be done. And I don't know if every company's ready to go down that path. And I didn't even know what it would take when I jumped into these roles. So I think a lot of companies don't actually have the foundation they need before they launch into this journey. And I think that's where outsourcing expert people, very closely defined segments and experiments, right? You can get real data, worthwhile data back.
Yeah.
I can see that being super valuable. Maybe even you're killing it in one segment and you think you've got some applications, some product market fit in another segment. Maybe you take that segment. I can see that being really powerful. And you can get up and running so much faster.
I think that's true, but now not every agency does that. Some agencies, and this is all part of this whole painting the whole industry, there are some agencies that if you have product market fit, you have a product message fit, your exact ideal client profile, the exact vertical, and you know the exact channel and the exact message, you know what fucking works, you've got the recipe, you can outsource it to them, they'll do it cheaper, no problem. Yeah. But let's be honest, most companies don't have that.
No, definitely the ones I work for definitely don't.
No, they don't, right? And so they're trying to figure stuff out. And now I would recommend that 90% of the agencies I see, they are not the people to figure shit out with. There are some agencies you can figure stuff out with, but people just think, oh, outsource is outsource, right? Where obviously that's not the case. That's like saying, hey, I'm going to the doctor when there's a billion different kinds of specialists. Let's talk that test and iterate. Now, let's use you as an example. You've built outbound teams 6+ years. You've done a hell of a lot and you failed a hell of a lot, which means that the next time you build your team, your first guess includes 6 years worth of learnings and failings and successes, right? You're more likely to get it right on your next try.
You'd hope so. I think the biggest learning from all these years is just focus, right? I listen to lots of SDR content, and so what are your team doing to do more with less? And they start listing 7 different things. And that is me. That's what I've done in the past. And actually really focusing in on 1 or 2 very key areas, and actually getting the team to focus in on 1 or 2 key areas. You actually know whether those areas are actually having an impact or whether it's just throwing stuff at a wall and hoping it sticks.
That's probably one of the biggest things that I've seen come with experience from fantastic outbound leadership is we're running the same experiments. But if I layer and tier my experiments in such a way that every failing gives me absolute insights into why it failed and what to try next to iterate through to success, you're like sharpening a blade, you're honing the edge. Whereas those same experiments run in a different order across maybe 1 extra variable in each experiment, all of a sudden you're left with no actual insights. You're just guessing the next experiment.
That is a huge misconception in SDR. I used to sell A/B testing tools to conversion rate optimization people, and they would cry if they saw the SDR posts on, this is my A/B test. And that's just comes from a place of limited tools, limited understanding. There is, unless you can really have an independent variable, which is very difficult in SDR, very difficult. There's always different variables. Then you can't say X caused Y. You can't say that. You can say it's interesting, it's worth expanding on, it may have caused Y. And then the way I've learned to think about it is, if you think about like the segment, let's say you want to experiment with a new segment, okay? Series A companies that have raised in the last 12 months, just hired a VP of marketing, something like that, right? That's the rules of the game. That's one of your games you're playing. Now your tactics that fall under there, those are your plays, right? I'm going to do personal outreach. I'm going to use whatever, video, gifting, educational events, whatever you want to do. And those are your tactics. You can measure those. And then how you score the game is also very important, okay? But what you have to make sure is that focus at the top, the rules of the game are as consistent as possible. Because if they're not, then your insights down through the rest of it are pointless. Right?
Yeah.
You don't really know if they're leading to any improved results at all.
Absolutely. And that speed of iterating and the focus of iteration is really important. The ability to iterate, and like you mentioned with the A/B test, where what I see in the industry is A/B test is I've just tried to rewrite a different email. The second A/B test is I'm just trying a different style of email. A third A/B test is I'm going to try a different kind of personalization. A fourth A/B test is I'm going to try a different pain points, and a fifth one is maybe I'm going to try a different value proposition. But now you throw all of those, that's actually 5 different variables.
Yeah.
Right. So when you're testing those 5 in one different A/B test, so you've now got 5 different A/B tests, you actually can't tell anything. What you need to do is an A/B test with one of those. I'm going to try 5 different personalizations, and that is going to give you the insights on that one variable. So having 5 variables in A/B test, what's 5 fractional? What's the whole formula? You've got a couple of hundred different combinations there, and they never work it out, right?
Then think about all the different variables for the company that you're targeting, the buyer you're targeting,
mate,
and that's a human.
The channel, because this is just on the email. Then there's the media within the channel. Are we going to use a video? Are we going to use a GIF? Then there's the actual sequence. Are we starting off with a call and then an email? Are we doing a triple tap? Are we starting fast, going slow, starting slow, speeding up? Like, there's an infinite amount of options. And here's the interesting thing to me is that most of this is left up to the most junior hire in your company to figure out. This is what I see all the time. I see these SDRs failing. I'm like, what did you expect?
Yeah. I'd learned this from pain, right? I'm the guy that used to give people 20 OKRs and think that we were going to hit them, and 20 new things to try, and it always ends up in a mess. So it takes pain to learn from these things. I would love to see someone come out with a real experimentation tool for outbound.
Let's keep talking.
So I'd love to see it.
So let me ask you this now. You've got the most junior person in your team figuring out your audience, your message, your channels, your ideal client personas, your profiles, whether a top-down approach or a bottom-up approach is working. Like, you've put all of this on the most junior person. They have to figure out how to maximize their tools. This is often their first job, maybe their second job. So they're still learning about their circadian rhythms, their efficiencies, how to be a productive employee, how to manage up, how to manage down, how to deal with workplace conflicts. Like they're still junior. How many years do you actually think you need in the role to be an expert at the role?
I think it dramatically changes based on the stage of company you're at, right? If you're gone now, you've got the brand machine, you've got the demand gen machine, you've got huge awareness about what you do. There's a playbook that works. They've got one. If your sales room, right, awesome technology by the way, they're still figuring out outbound, right? And I think those earlier stage companies, I think the more grey hair, the better generally, or good leadership, right? Leadership that is able to focus you based on their first 20, 30, 40 customers. I don't know what it would be. So it really depends.
It's really interesting insight that, because this SDR role is not the same. The SDR role, as people think about it, which is a voice actor on the phone that comes in and runs through activities that are very neatly and clearly defined, is a very different job from a creative prospector who's helping a company find their fit.
Yeah,
so
you posted about this the other day, actually.
Yeah, I've got this crass saying that SDRs can't survive in the wild. And what I mean by that, and I don't mean it in a diminishing term for SDRs, although it definitely comes across that way, is that there is no person in their first or second or even third year of employment, or even their third year as an SDR, that can completely make the right tool selection, the right channel selection, the right sequence selection, the right audience selection, the right message selection, configure all of the technicals for themselves, run efficient tests whilst delivering meetings at a pace that's enough to sustain an account executive who also probably doesn't have a very neatly defined sales process, so is wasting some opportunities. They haven't neatly defined their qualification criteria and all of that. There's no SDR who could succeed at that. No.
Yeah, I think maybe in the past they could have done. It wasn't as complex in the past.
Okay.
I'm talking like 10 years ago, predictable prospecting world, hammering a list. But really what we're talking about there, I don't think it's unique to SDR. That's an overloaded employee who is either going to get burnt out, they're going to learn a load doing that, but you're going to get burnt out. Yeah, and it is I see that regularly. I see that the picture you just painted regularly. I'm sure you have calls from founders telling you that exact picture regularly.
That picture, I think that picture is the default, to be honest. That picture's the default. Having the right support in place there, because when I look at that, here's the thing. Who should be selecting the audience? Literally the target. Who is your product made for? That is a strategic decision at the highest level of an organization. At a minimum, your audience selection is like your chief marketing officer or your VP of sales, like somewhere between that, a chief revenue officer, somewhere up there, right? So audience selection should not be an SDR's role.
You're right, but there should be room for like you said in one of your posts, when you know what you're doing, there should be room for an SDR to nudge that and work within the boundaries slightly.
Absolutely. Now, I don't mind an SDR testing coloring outside the lines, but if they color outside the lines and they paint a pretty picture, something works, that is information that gets sent up the chain. Hey, we've had some success doing this. What do you think? Could we put together a structured campaign to investigate and explore this strategic opportunity? So broadly, they're part of a machine, but they're not the driver.
You're right.
Now, what about messaging and finding a message fit? Sure, a good SDR can find personalization and try to tie that to relevancy, but to articulate the pain and the value proposition, that is key. If the marketing department hasn't got that sorted, the company's in a lot of trouble if you're leaving that to your SDR to figure out. There's so many of these variables that should not be an SDR's job. The SDR should be involved in the process. They're a contributor, but they are not accountable for it.
Yeah, I think autonomy is a super important factor we have to talk about, but I see it as there's two lanes, right? There's if you think the game requires like mechanical skill, it's X, Y equals Z, right? And you've worked that out, you lock down things, just repeat it, right? Now, for me, that's soul-destroying work. That's why I work for these early stage companies. I like the ambiguity. I like the experience of working things out and trying new things and that freedom. And then there's the second sort of school of thought where you believe the game requires conceptual thinking and creativity. And in that world, you need to try and maximize autonomy as much as you can, but it's like a walled garden. Like, you imagine like a sandbox in a game. Like, you can do loads of cool stuff. It's like Zelda. You can do loads of cool stuff, but certain things you can't do, right? And in that world, the playbook, there isn't really a playbook, but there is a philosophy, and there's principles that you have to stick to. And one of those principles should be that messaging. Here's the message to the market. You can describe it in different ways, right? You can use personalization to get your message across all you want, but here's our message to the market. And I think that second option, that's why I choose to work at these younger stage companies. I think it's actually a better experience for an SDR because they're more invested in getting better every day because they actually own more of the playground. So they're really invested in, they can be more accountable, I suppose is what I'm saying.
Sure.
They own
I
it.
appreciate that. So this is where, let me go back to that where I say that they can't survive on their own. I don't think that someone in their first year of a job can do that without an effective and skilled and capable SDR manager.
Oh yeah, and it's a high touch manager. It's not a, hey, let's have a one-on-one if you're lucky 15 minutes a week. It's war rooms daily, right?
So
what accounts we're going after, let's look at each prospect, let's help you think in the right way.
So don't get me wrong, when I say an SDR can't cope, I'm talking about an independent SDR. You have a VP of sales and you have an AE and you have an SDR who is operating remotely on their own trying to figure this out. And that scenario is very common, more common than not. And to me, that is a recipe for disaster. When you're talking about this walled garden, creating this autonomy, allowing creativity and prospecting, I'm fine with all of that if you have dedicated SDR leadership.
Yeah, absolutely.
And to me, that is the key. That's what's been missing. We've had a middle management problem in prospecting where everyone has put this, I don't know if it's this kind of or die, sink or swim kind of mentality on an SDR. And they say, oh, we get the guns. We just want the killers. And what they find is the ones that succeeded were, first of all, like bigger picture than all of this, SDRs operating in the 20% space. What is the 80% space? Is the product and the fucking market, right? Because you could have the best, and it's a nested if statement. If the product is right, and if the market is susceptible and open to this product at this particular time, then can I get all of this SDR shit fucking humming to work? Yeah. Because you can get that last 20% perfect, but if you're operating outside of this if statement, like if the product's right, it also just doesn't work.
Yeah, absolutely. I've been in that world. It's soul destroying too, because you actually do your job. Because when actually someone decides to consider what you do, they're like, no. But you did a great job getting me to consider it. No money though. Don't worry, you're not getting. This isn't going to stage 3, and you're not getting revenue from this. That would be soul destroying.
And I see these conflicts all the time pop up in every which way. I got this week asking me how many SQLs, what's the value of the pipeline that's been created from pointers prospecting. Now, we've set up the meetings with the target that they've chosen. They've been happy with the targets. We want a meeting with this company, with this persona at this company, and we set them up a meeting with that person at that company. So now whether the opportunity was created or not is an account executive issue or a strategic issue or a product or something up higher up. But
yeah, if you're only responsible for the firmographics, and this applies for SDRs too, if you're not empowered to run discovery, or in your model, you're not actually asked to run discovery, if you get that person to show up on a meeting, you've done your job. Especially if they're picking the individual people, you've done your job. And then actually, you may also be telling that company, hey, this isn't a good target for you. And that is really valuable, right?
It is just as valuable. And that's where we try to have a little bit of a difference. And where I think I'd be able to convince you that outbound operations can have a significant benefit to in-house in a few categories. Imagine a small startup, 10 employees, including the founders and including the development team. They have a this target, they need to increase. They need to just show more runs on the board before their next funding tranche. They've got seed funding and the VC saying, look, we need to just know that there's more of a product market fit here before we pump a bit harder. They don't have a huge amount of cash. This isn't like the seed rounds that you were seeing 2 years ago in Silicon Valley. We're talking like a normal, here is, I don't know, $250,000, $500,000, $750,000, maybe even $1 million, right? But that million, 2 million, maybe it needs to see them through 2-3 years because they've also got a lot of development to do. These companies say, hey, we need to start calling and engaging the market.
Yeah. And not just use your investors or your VC.
Yeah. They've tapped out of friends, family, and network. They've tapped out that. They need to get market validation, right? Yeah. Genuine market validation. They don't have a lot of cash. What should this company do? I'll tell you what they normally do. They hire an SDR, and the founder talks to this SDR saying, hey, I've called, these are the people we want to be calling. This is usually what I say to them on the phone. And this could be a technical founder. It doesn't matter. It's the founder. Is now briefing this SDR what they want to do, and they put this SDR on the phone, and the SDR doesn't get the same results that the founder gets. When the founder phoned these 16 CEOs, he got 3 meetings. When the SDR phones these 3 CEOs, he gets 0 meetings. And he's like, now what? This isn't working. I think I got myself a shit SDR. This is everywhere. Every day. This is 80% of the SDR are in this position, right? Or maybe they got one AE, right? They bought on a full cycle AE, and now they want this full cycle AE to just focus on pipeline. So they also now want to bring in an SDR. So the founder and the AE employ this SDR, and they're like, you're going to serve this SDR, this AE. The AE's got a bit of experience now setting up meetings for themselves, but they were an industry professional as well, field sales type of person. And now they say, we want you to make calls and emails. Same story. None of them know about email deliverability. None of them know like genuinely how to coach up someone who maybe isn't perfect. Also going to fail. Those are the people that I think should come to a company like Pointer. And a company like Pointer employs a professional like Harry Sims. And Harry Sims sits down with the founder to say, all right, what do you need to achieve? I've got a good SDR here on my team. He's very good at calling, very good at emails. I've got an email delivery expert. I've got a list building expert to do targeting. We've got a copywriter to help with some of the messaging. We know how to get this job done. But let's just talk about your product, your market. Let's see if there's something that we can do here to figure this out for you. Surely they're more likely to succeed in that scenario than the previous.
Yeah, you make a very compelling argument. The other thing and when I posted about being laid off, like I had inbound for the first time ever in my life, right? And I spoke to a few founders, and these founders, they're wearing every hat, and that's how early stage some of these companies are. And lots of these founders I spoke to haven't actually done that path you talked about, but they've heard it so many times that they don't want to.
Are they scared now?
Yeah. And just giving them time to focus on their existing customers and getting them to renew and delivering better and product, that's worth way more than the value of the meetings that you're going to book. Just taking that pipeline hat out.
And I've got this infographic that I made where I've got a BDR. I use BDR, SDR fucking interchangeably. Yeah, nobody knows the difference. So I've got BDR in the middle of a Venn diagram. Then there's sales in one, marketing in another, customer success in the third, and product in a fourth. Because in those early stages, like you need feedback. Do you have this integration? Oh, tell me, all of this BDR role becomes so central to an organization when done right, that organizations wouldn't succeed without it. And when done badly, it's just like all these failed scenarios we've discussed. So,
what you just described is, I think, the future structure of a world-class SDR team.
First of all, I was about to head down this road. I was about to say, tell me what the future is. So let's go. Let's do it. What does the future of SDR look like?
Point may have already done it, but I see it more, I'm not an expert at it, but DevOps in the development world, they've combined development, operations, testing, design, all these different parts of that life cycle into small little cells and pods. And they're tightly wound. They work on small projects, iterate very fast. They're very autonomous. They use automation. They use technologies that they choose. Yeah. They have lots of freedom and lots of collaboration. And I imagine you have AE, SDR, CS, data, ops. Maybe data and ops can interchange. Maybe you have a marketing, field marketer, depending on your region, whatever marketing. And they are responsible for this account list, right? Account list is customers and net new.
I love that.
And right. AE goes on holiday for a couple of weeks or gets too hungover. Guess who steps in to run the discovery calls that day? The CS or the SDR can jump in, right?
Wow. How we came up to this conclusion independently was we're sitting in a meeting with a client talking about their prospecting. We're actually in a meeting talking about the conversion from prospecting to close. We realized we were setting up enough meetings, but they actually had a qualification and a problem within their pipeline. They were going from demo to proposal, and they really needed to build a business case in between. They needed more of a medic kind of enterprise stuff. And in this, what we realized is there's also no structure for the customer success, for that back end of the bow tie, to go from delivering that first impact to where it went back into the sales cycle for resell, cross-sell, upsell, and all of that. And we said, oh, why don't we build in some triggers into your organization that when this happens, when this impact is delivered, it will flag it, and our BDR will pick up the phone and say, hey, John, look, we know we're working with you on this project. Susan's actually just asked if she could have some time in your calendar just to discuss the project, how the impact's going, and where the other opportunities with what that might look like if we were to extrapolate this. So whatever the wording is to set up the meeting. Now you've built your BDR into your customer success upsell. Now you've closed this loop from customer success back to account executive to get this flywheel function, right? Nobody's thinking of these things for their SDR because they just focus on, are you cold calling, are you cold calling, are you cold calling? And all of these leads are like coming into the funnel filter, then they close, then they churn, and they just, so anyway.
Yeah, I think we're getting there though with PLG, right? I think this is the world we will start operating in the future. And the companies that do it really well early are going to be the winners. You can imagine there's no lead source at that point either. Like, who cares who gets credit about what? You have your account list, and it's your job to go and help them win, right? And it doesn't matter whether an SDR cold calls someone. It doesn't matter whether marketing ran a campaign that you agreed on together as a team.
Outbound leads to inbound. Who really cares if they clicked the link in a cold email, went to the website a week later, did a webinar a week later, booked a demo? Does it matter? The company got revenue.
Yeah. And the other thing, like, imagine an SDR tapping the CS on the shoulder being like, hey, what do you think of this messaging? And they're like, yeah, I'm not sure. Hey, I heard this on a call the other day. Maybe you should try this. Hey, this customer, potential new business customer, feels exactly like Susan, who's our existing customer. Should we try and introduce them?
Yeah, fuck, all the bloody pain points exist within your customer base. And here you are shopping for insights from the market. The BDR is fishing in this pool in the ocean, and you've got a very neatly controlled barrel like sitting in your backyard. Mate, but this is where professionals like you, who really understand the industry, really understand the role of business development within business development, within sales, get it, really get it. And it is not like cold calling is a means to an end, but it's not an end in and of itself. There's a big picture at play, and I love talking to people like you who get it, because those are the companies that will succeed.
That's another thing. I don't want to be the guy that grumbles about the industry, but I hear it on your podcast, I hear it on everyone's podcast. People talk about channels all the time. What's your favorite channel? The channel is honestly irrelevant. Yes, there's limitations for each channel. Until you can show me the data that says this buyer, like phone ready leads, picks up the phone, prefers to be contacted on the phone, is very active on LinkedIn, prefers to be contacted on LinkedIn, is great at responding to email, then the channel that you prefer is irrelevant. Right?
Well, yes, it's obviously the channel that works better. So like we have clients, a lot of clients in construction, for example. The construction industry in Australia is by and large underrepresented within LinkedIn. They're not on LinkedIn. They also on fucking sites, they are driven by their mobile phone. So phone calls and SMSs are far more successful than emails, right? These guys literally have gloves on their hand half the day. Never mind fucking typing up emails going, I hope this email finds you well. Fuck no. It's like the channel is hyper relevant to the prospects.
Absolutely.
And you get down to the minutia of, do you like GIFs and do you like video? I'm like, who fucking cares, right? Yeah. That is, we've done A/B tests on all of it. Videos, GIFs, every single thing. And you know what we found? That having the right message matters more than if they're listening to the message, if they're seeing the message, if they're feeling the message. It doesn't actually matter. That's all.
It's 100% the message is important. But then I was just thinking when you were saying that, imagine a newer age SDR coming in being like, hey, I'm a social sell to these construction industry people.
I'll be like, that's fine. You need a fucking slab of beers on your shoulders, a big Makita boombox in your other one, and go to site, and you can social sell to these construction workers, but you're not going to do it as an inside salesperson.
For sure.
No, go wait at the 7-Eleven for their $1 coffee. You'll catch every fucking tradie in the area. But you're not social selling on LinkedIn Live, right?
I like it. Good one.
Yeah, but I love these, like, talking to, when I see your things, I don't read many blogs. I'm at the point in my business where I'm struggling to read messages from my team. I'm behind on reading Slack channels from my team where they are waiting on me to do their work. So me not replying to that email that day is costing me just $1,000 in labor, right? Let alone how you're going to save me $500. I'm not like, this is where I'm at in my business. We are busy, but I always find time for your blog.
Oh, cheers, dude. That means a lot.
Always find time for your blog, because the quality of your prospecting is, there's a lot of people I respect a hell of a lot, like Jordan Crawford for targeting prospects by pain, or list building by pain, for example. You for your, I mean, I'm sure you got a lot of skills, so I don't want to take away from any of it, but your ability to tie personalization to relevancy, I haven't come across anyone who does it as well.
I appreciate that. And yeah, Jordan's good. Jed's really good. Florian's really good.
Oh, there's so,
yeah.
But you are one of them.
Look, it does not interest me. Like, actually, this came from, I was forced to, because I was building teams, doing all the busy stuff that you just described earlier. I didn't have hours to make dials and hours to, like, bombard buyers into submission. I had to focus on quality. And candidly, it doesn't interest me to increase inputs. That's not interesting to me.
Yeah.
It really doesn't interest me. What I want to do is do less inputs to get way more outputs. That's scaling to me.
Absolutely. And the less you can do to get to the higher outcomes, that is the definition of efficiency.
Exactly. And lots of people, again, that's misunderstood in the SDR world. They think going from 5 to 10 SDRs is scaling, but not if the revenue per SDR goes from 1 million to 500,000. That is actually not scaling. That's the opposite of scaling. So
this is why we need people like you, is particularly to lead organizations like Pointer and in Australia markets, where I see these people that are like, hey, you can use this human validated data and you can call 10,000 people in a day. And then I'm like, and what do I do tomorrow? Because that is 3 times my total addressable market. What I need is a way to increase the quality of my conversations and conversion.
But then we get back to autonomy, right? If an SDR is just reading the words that you're telling them to read, targeting the people you've told them to target, the accounts you've told them to target, sending the same message that you've told them to send, the blast email, and sticking them in an auto follow-up cadence, what incentive do they have to improve the quality of their outreach? Or what freedom do they have to improve the quality of their outreach? They don't.
It's something I struggle with at Pointer, because our current, and I'm happy to be challenged on it, this is our current philosophy. It is the SDR leader's job to build that SDR into a successful position where they are generating enough pipeline to justify their existence. So the SDR leader can write the cadence, write the message, write the script along with them, but like basically the SDR leadership is doing it, coach them up on the calling, get them successful. And when that is working, now from a place of success, that SDR can say, I didn't write my first email, my SDR leader did, but I'm going to have a crack at my second, because now we're picking up a new RCP. Now we're pushing into a new segment. So now there's options for more autonomy on that one. I'm still going to use my SDR leadership to help me with this, that, and the other, but I'm going to try this, that, and the other. And by the time they're on like their third persona, they can run it all independently. We've decreased our need for management because we've actually, the whole way through, they've been successful, and our manager can focus on our new SDR. So like we get them successful and then build autonomy, as opposed to them trying to flutter their way to success. I don't know which is better. It's just our model.
No, I saw your post on it the other day and I did agree with it. It's just another variable, like time, right? It takes time to do that. As long as those things are defined, right? I do free coaching for SDRs. They bring me their templates and say, who wrote this template? My manager. And how long have you been there? A year. You've got President's Club last year. I don't disagree with your model at all. And you need to make clients successful instantly. It's not like you have normal ramp periods. But I do think there's a happy balance. It's again, the game, right? Imagine the game in the playground. Some people are awesome at the game and they rise up levels fast and they show, and some people struggle, and those are the people that should probably be on the lower levels a bit longer.
Yeah.
I purposely go and hire people that show that creative and that they thrive in the autonomous environments. But when I say autonomous, I'm having daily war rooms with these people. And a war room for me is you're bringing me a list of prospects that we've researched. You've come up with the messaging yourself, and we're going to go through it together, and we're going to improve it together. And over time, they start making the right decisions themselves far better than I ever could, right? But if they never get the chance.
And our second stage of growth is most of our clients, because of where we're capturing them and because we're helping them be successful, but also because we hold on, let me not point. Let's not point. Can't take credit for this. So because our customers are growing, we start off with this one SDR who's been really heavily managed and built up by our SDR leadership. But the second SDR we're hiring in the States, and the third SDR is in the UK. And that first SDR, who is now autonomous and now knows how to do the job, plays a leadership role in doing that same for the new one. So it becomes this organic growth into management as opposed to a player. They're still not the coach. They're still not the BDR manager. They're still going to have a one-on-one with the BDR manager every week, but they can be a bit of a coach and help guide the new ones through anyway. But
I think we're agreeing.
I'm blown away and inspired, right? Every time I read one of your posts, I think maybe instead of the 100 emails, we should have done 10, right? Because out of the 100 emails, 5% response, 2% positive, 1 converts. Maybe we should have done 10. It's the same amount of time. It's a different amount of time. It's different. But
I'd love to go back to this actually. You said my skill is like making personalization relevant. People have this debate online, personalization versus relevance. I don't see what's the difference?
Oh, what I find is this: at the very highest, personalization proves to me that you are a human, that you are reaching out to me for me, that you've done a little bit of research, and you can use personalization to remove yourself from my immediate, I don't know what, neocortex part that says this person is a threat or this person wants something from you. You can build rapport using personalization. But that personalization does not necessarily relate to the pain or the value, right? So you can achieve that personalization without relating it to a pain or a value of the product or for the reason for outreach even. You can still achieve all of those things. Like the classic, hey, we went to the same school. The school motto was, by the way, I see... Now, it's not good. It's not good. But it does, of what personalization achieves, it can tick 1, 2, or 3. So for example, personalization can increase open rates. It doesn't mean it's going to increase reply rates. So then personalization can start ticking boxes 7, 8, 9, and 10, which is it's tied to relevancy. It breaks patterns like how you will do it. It's not just the opening line personalization. You might then include your personalization in the call to action or somewhere else. I like to make sure that personalization not only shows personalization for you, but shows my personality, right? Because if you come across to me as some boring fucking ChatGPT script, I'm not friends with ChatGPT, right? Yeah. I'm friends with people who swear, who have a crack, who laugh. Those are the people I want to talk to. So you start getting all these other ticks in personalization. And then if you can somehow use that personalization for the relevant, like the trigger, then you've got like this holy grail kind of personalization. Still, the message has to be relevant. So I guess personalization for me is the trigger personalized, is the reason for outreach personalized, is a personality there, like all those different things. When it's done well, you'll get a response rate, even if it's just to say no thank you, right? Because you're in a conversation, like they feel more obliged to.
Of course, I don't think you should send anything to anyone if it's not relevant.
Relevance is easy, right? And one of the things we do is relevance at scale, right? If you are an X position and you look like this, then this and this and this, and this is relevant to you, I could just send 1 million of those emails out, and if it is hyper relevant and if that is what kept you up at night, I'm still going to get a response. So relevancy trumps personalization.
Well, relevancy is personalization. A different level of it.
You're right, and it's only ticking boxes 8 and 9 on personalization benefits as opposed to the 1 and 5 ones.
If you're a human with the ability to say yes to send an email or no to send an email, then it has to be relevant. That's just like bare bones. Now, the personalization side, the reason why I try to take it as far as I can is because I see my competition as AI, as ad spend, as marketing automation. And I genuinely ask myself this, and SDRs, you should do this. Can marketing do what you're about to do? If the answer is yes, you probably shouldn't do it. Can AI do what you're about to do? If the answer is yes, don't do it, right? Can you just automate what you're doing? Because I'll tell you what, if the answer keeps being yes, then those things will replace you. They will. Now, a human cannot, and marketing cannot, AI cannot, ad spend cannot, deeply research each buyer in their business. They can't. So that's why I try to do that, and that's the thing that I really preach to people is like, it's possible. It's very possible in the industries I work in. When I'm selling to marketers, they're telling the world what they care about every single day. It's easy. In fact, if you don't do it, you are the outlier, right?
Now, some of this we as Pointed try builds up into a system or a process, and I'll give you an example. Originally, when people are selling outsourced SDR services, so one of our products, we do sales management as a service. So we do outsource SDR and BDR management. We'll have your weekly one-on-one with you. We will do your war room with you. We'll set you up in the sales engagement platform. We make sure your emails are getting delivered. We do your call coaching with you, your management, because we've identified that the management layer is the problem in the BDR success, not the BDR, right? So that is the skill you need to bring into your organization, not the fucking caller. Yes, you need the caller, but you could have hired the caller yourself. What you're lacking is the management and that's the layer of strategy and the layer of management. That's what we bring in. So when we first start looking at it, we're like, we could offer this to any company who hires SDRs. So level one is, do you hire an SDR? But then we say, oh, let's look for companies who hire an SDR, less than 4 SDRs, because like usually once they're over 4, they've got a system and processes they had to get there. So less than 4 SDRs and don't have a dedicated SDR manager, level 2. Now let's find companies who have SDRs, no dedicated SDR manager, and have had one of those SDRs churn in the last 3 months. Now let's find SDRs, no SDR manager, have had churn in the last 4 months, and the SDR department reports to marketing and not sales, right? Which is also pretty common. Now let's find companies who have SDRs, not SDR leadership, whose SDRs have churn, who report to marketing and not sales, and have a new CMO in the last 3 to 6 months. Now let's find all of that, and that CMO comes from an organization where they did not have an SDR department. Those are the people I want to talk to, right? So now I've done so much of this personalization and relevancy through my list that by the time I'm talking to that CMO, I know exactly what I'm going to talk about. Hey, tell me, what's it like to run an SDR department for the first time? Kind of like your first gas trust. That's what I want to talk to this person about. Absolutely. That I can do at scale.
What you're doing there is personalization. It doesn't have to be that you like E-Type Jaguars. That is personalization. When people think about ads, digital ads, that's exactly what they talk about in terms of personalization.
Yeah.
And also when always this battle, I've had this a few times, oh, it's creepy, all this stuff. I agree it's creepy if you get private, intimate details about people and you use it in sales outreach. But if you're willing to put that stuff out on the public internet, advertisers use that against you to sell you ads all the time. Why shouldn't I as a salesperson? You've chosen to put it out there. It's not like I'm connecting with these people on Facebook and going through all their deep family pictures. It's usually Twitter, Instagram, podcasts, interviews, earnings calls, publicly available stuff that everyone else uses.
Not just everyone else uses. When I put a post out on LinkedIn, I'm upset if people didn't see it. Like it's the opposite. We actually want people to be seeing it and reading it.
Dude, I stopped worrying about it.
I don't worry about it, don't get me wrong, but the point is more you are validating a desire more so than when you do it right.
But you have a much bigger audience than me. So like you must get a lot anyway, but like the stuff I put so much time and effort into gets 8 likes and 1,000 impressions.
Yeah, just post a selfie of you and your dog. Selfie of you and your dog through the moon.
Yeah, and I actually delete LinkedIn off my phone now because I was spending too much time on it. I don't have Instagram or anything on my phone. This is another thing, and I don't know if this is a tenuous link or not, you may have to cut this, but if ChatGPT and all this AI is learning from the average, like the average of everything, I don't need that. And the best example of it is TripAdvisor, right? You've been on TripAdvisor and gone to a restaurant because the ratings are higher and you thought it's horrible shit. Food's awful. But then you have a friend who's a chef who says, hey, there's this new restaurant in town. You should really try it out. I know the chef, he'll sort you out. You go instantly and the food's amazing. I don't need AI to look at 1 million data points to tell me what's good or bad. I just need like Josh Braun to tell me what's good or bad. Does that make sense? Or is it I don't know if that's educated on.
No, it does make a lot of sense. We're not going to get into the whole ChatGPT because I think there's so many brilliant use cases for it and all of that, right? Brilliant use cases, but I completely get what you're saying. It's that if you're able to step above, it's actually creating more room at the top. It is bringing up the average. Don't get me wrong. It's bringing up the average, but it's actually going to bring the average up, but also bring some of those top performance down that are going to start adopting it.
Yeah, I think they'll be gone. I bet you've got a meeting, haven't you?
I've always got meetings. So we asked this path at the moment to try. I need to be that layer of strategy. Because in any successful outbound, we tell our clients there's a layer of strategy, there's a layer of management, and there's a layer of execution. We bring all three when you do full outsource with us. If you want to hire in-house, we can just bring that layer of management and that layer of strategy into your organization, or they can just hire us as a consultant and we just bring that layer of strategy. We'll just be like an outsourced kind of director of business development. So we bring all three, whatever they need, and they can flip-flop and as they need and whatever else. I need to stay on that strategy piece. And at the moment, I've dipped a bit too far into the management. So,
did you see my face when you were telling me that?
no, I'm looking at, yeah.
I was looking suspicious at you. I was like, I bet you struggle to stay up there.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm currently meeting with every client every week, and I love it because I genuinely love it. And when we do it, I'm meeting with them as a strategic. Our management layer comes to the meeting, and the execution layer comes to the meeting, and the execution layer presents what they've done, what they've seen, what they've observed. The management layer will give their analysis on what they think has worked well, what hasn't worked well, etc. I'll give a strategic analysis on what I think we should maybe try next, like in what the next iteration is. And obviously, this is all a discussion. It's not like a formal dance. And I don't ever want to be removed from that. But if I could do 80 of those a week and meet every client every fortnight, I'm fine. But it's when I'm doing that, and then I don't do any call coaching. I don't do any activity management. I'm not like deep in the weeds on management, but anyway, whatever. Way too in the weeds for this conversation. I need to lift myself up, but as every other executive would say, I need to get more strategic, less operational.
It's hard, dude, especially when it's like a passion and it's your face on it all. Right.
Yeah, mate. It's hard, but it's fun, and I love it. And these challenges and this conversation that I've had with you is genuinely what drives me, because sales is fucking hard. Yes. Not only is it incredibly difficult to know what to do, even when you know exactly what to do, it is still hard to do it. And even if you're willing to do it, it's still hard to get outcomes. It is incredibly challenging. And I love the fact that I'm helping companies succeed. I'm helping companies thrive by delivering something that they can't do. And to me, that's like a point of pride. Like I wear this badge of a salesperson, I'm sure as you do too, as like a badge of honor, right? Like I'm creating employment for my staff. I'm creating employment for the companies who work, for them to employ their staff, for them to pay their suppliers who employ their staff. Like we're doing like incredible, noble work. And the ability to learn, the ability to learn from people like you and to see people like you in the community pushing hard. Like when you write your blog and when you write these posts, helping people just be a little bit better, sell a little bit better, convert a little bit better. You don't get paid for that, right? Like you're doing incredibly noble work, helping people thrive, right?
So Ricky, I've got over 100 different prospecting plays, right? Personal prospecting plays, but they're company specific for the companies I've been working for, all with examples and replies. The big challenge for me is it takes me 5 to 6 hours to make that applicable and generic and pull another company example in so I can prove that there's other applications for it. If I probably should have, I've done a few of them, I've got a few of them queued up. If I wasn't desperately trying to find my next gig, like it's like a year's work to make that a real thing. Wow. And it could be. That's what I want it to be. I want it to be a free searchable resource that an SDR can go and be inspired. Here's what I could try every day. Try a different thing every day.
Wow, mate. I want to chat to you another time about that, because that is going to be really exciting, mate. Well, look, we've been going here for an hour and it's been one of the most enjoyable hours I've ever chatted to someone. We're going to have to cut this up hardcore, right? Because no one's investing an hour in this conversation, even though they should. But I'm looking forward to chatting to you again soon. Wherever you do land up, we're going to bring you back on when this playbook starts evolving. I'd love to have playlists even better, right? I want to start looking at that, and I want to start implementing it with my team, right?
If I can ever help any of your people, frontline people, if they've got CVP level buyers in these tough industries with some data out there about them, then maybe they have some ideas, send them to me. Tell them to book the link on my website. I do it for free.
Amazing. At the moment, they're all benefiting from you just from reading your blog. When I posted, hey everyone, look at this. How good is this? If somebody did want to get hold of you, where do they do it?
Yeah, LinkedIn, Harry Sims, or personal-prospecting.com. That's it. And hopefully by the time this is posted, I will have found my next home. I'm pretty close, so we'll see.
Amazing. It's been a fantastic chatting to you, and I'll chat to you again soon.
Thank you, Ricky. Let's do it again. Bye.
Cheers.